Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Fringes of Sound. I am Lars Hauer, and today we are talking with Alina, better known as Distraxi. How are you doing today, Alina?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the interview.
So let's get started talking about your most recent album, Dust You Are, on Darkrider Tapes. So the album was kind of a surprise to me. It stands out quite a bit from some of your previous work. And a big thing that stood out to me was I started listening to it and I heard the first track on there, and it was very much harsh noise and it was very reminiscent of a lot of your earlier work. And then all of a sudden, the second song started, and I'm like, oh my goodness, are these chords? Is this a harmony? So I really like how it deviated from some of your previous work, but did you start out with the intention of deviating from your previous work like that? Or did it feel like more a natural step forward?
Yeah, so I think with that release, I wanted to do some more sort of synthy stuff. And I wanted to juxtapose it with like very, very, very harsh stuff as well. Yeah, so the first and third tracks on that album, I think, are murky, very harsh sort of industrial tracks. So I wanted to make the other two like kind of, I guess, like poppy for noise. I've always really I've always had a soft spot for sort of power electronics and noise that like utilizes, I guess, sort of synth pop or dark wavy sort of sounds. I've been thinking of doing that for a while, and I thought doing the context of like having sort of sudden melody after like some real sort of harshness would like work pretty well. Hoping it sort of paid off.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. It surprised me a little bit. I definitely wouldn't call it poppy. It felt like you were starting to lean more into like a dark ambient kind of direction rather than just like the pure harsh noise. But then the track progressed a little bit more. It's just like, oh no, there's the noise.
Yeah, I was trying to, I guess it's kind of a progression from the sort of sound I had with the album you were talking about, the first one I released on Bent Window, Castration Fantasy, because that was quite like dark ambient influence. Yeah, I sort of blend into that a little bit then. And like it was a little softer than like most of my latest releases. So I thought I'd sort of continue that sound a little bit, but also keep it sort of more extreme. Yeah, I think the juxtaposition between like almost kind of accessible sounds and then like really extreme noise is quite effective. Especially, I feel like it's sort of using melody to emphasize the harshness of the rest of the track almost.
Something I always noticed about your music in general, as I've been listening, you use a lot more vocals than a lot of other noise artists who I follow. So was that just something that you started out doing, or were you originally making like just straight up noise and then you just started adding your vocals into it?
So I started out doing, I sort of started out making noise as I started listening to it. But like the first projects I sort of got into were like projects like Pharmacon and Korean and Uboa. And then like I sort of went back a bit and listened to like TG and stuff like that. So I very much like got into it through like sort of extreme industrial music, I guess. And through sort of modern power electronics. And a lot of that stuff has more vocals in it. So I think the place I went when I started listening to noise was like, oh, noise is like a genre with harsh vocals in it. And it's only as I sort of delved more into the scene that I discovered that a lot of it is just, like I ended up listening to things like Merzbow and the whole sort of Japanese noise scene and crunchy, like wallish stuff. But I love all that stuff. But I think what drew me to the to the scene initially was the sort of, I guess, lack of traditional instrumentation and harsh vocals on top of that. So that's always sort of been I guess a focus of my project. And yeah, it's just sort of what I'm naturally drawn to. Like I like doing vocals for it.
So with that in mind, I'm also kind of curious, like what your setup looks like, what kind of tools that you like to use. So is your setup, is it pretty much an all hardware setup, or do you use some virtual instruments as well? And then out of all the tools that you do use, like what are some of your favorite like go-tos that you like to use?
So it's sort of a mix between hardware and software. It started basically as a laptop noise project because I started it in sort of lockdown era 2021. So everything was still very much up in the air in terms of whether live shows would ever happen again and that sort of thing. So it was literally just me listening to, those these sort of power electronics and harsh industrial kind of stuff, and being like, I want to make that. And so yeah, I started doing it literally with, I bought an audio interface and a condenser mic, and then my early stuff was literally just software plugins, plugged my guitar amp into the headphone port of my DAW and just use that to make feedback. And then yeah, as I got more into it, I started, I got a proper mixer and started using more analog sort of hardware stuff. I think for the sort of synth side of things, I still quite enjoy using digital stuff because I think it gives that kind of clean, polished sound, even if it is, mixed so it's brick wall to shit, which is normally
right.
There's still a sort of polished sound I think you can get with soft synths that you can't so much with analog, or at least that's what I found. And so I sort of enjoy doing the sort of like synthy end of it on a computer, and then the actual harsh noise I generally make pretty much all of that analog these days. Or I do sometimes use a plugin on my laptop, ran through a bunch of pedals, and then like I manipulate that using sort of analog equipment as well. So sort of a mixture. In terms of what equipment I use, it's like pretty basic setup. My favorite pedal is probably I forgot it's a clone of a Boss pedal. It's like orange Behringer Superfuzz one. Basically all my pedals are like 20-30 quid cheap pedals because I'm poor. And
I personally have been looking at Amazon a lot recently, and I find all the like cheap clone pedals and stuff.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, like especially like Behringer stuff is so good. Like
see, Behringer, I personally am like of two minds because like one is just like you guys have some shady business practices, but on the other hand, how else am I going to get a 303 synthesizer for under $200? Like,
yeah, exactly. I have been considering getting the Wasp clone, the Behringer did, because that was used in like a lot of sort of early power electronics releases from like the 80s.
Right.
And yeah, honestly, it just seems like a fun toy to have.
All right. So sometimes you're starting out from like, you're getting your sound purely from like a hardware source and running it into the computer. And then other times you're running a signal out from the computer into pedals and then back into the computer.
Yeah. It's the advantage of having two PCs. Like I did a one-off project. It's probably not going to be a one-off project because I'm planning on doing more stuff for it. But called Coordination Disorder, and that's just like harsh noise wall. But that was from software plugins, just ran through a couple distortion pedals, and yeah, you can get this sort of very clean undertone. It's just sort of like condensed into like a nice crunch. I think there's definitely a place for digital stuff in noise. As much as some people still onto the like analog only, it's like it's like it's a genre you should be able to make something however the hell you want. Like some of the like classic sort of power electronics albums are like laptop made. A lot of like 2010s Pro and stuff is all digital. Like Pleasure Grounds, one of my favorite albums of all time. That's all made on a laptop. Like in my opinion, the best White House stuff is all their like later stuff, which is all basically digitally created, and that still manages to be like the most vile sounding harsh noise like you've ever fucking heard, and it's all made on a laptop. And like I prefer to do things analog to some extent because I love feedback and I like torturing speakers with my contact mics. But yeah, I think being an analog purist in an age where you've got so many tools at your disposal, if you're using a computer, is like, I don't know. Like, if you like the limits of using analog and it makes you better at what you do, then that's great. But I think discounting it altogether is, yeah.
I like the idea that even as a harsh noise artist, you want to kind of get like a clean undertone behind all of it.
I think because noise as a genre is so it's like over the top, you know, like harsh noise and power electronics are over the top genres. Like it's insane. Right. I love that about it, and I love sort of direct to tape, super filthy sounding noise stuff, you know, as much as anyone else. But I think I've always been drawn to almost taking that sort of crazy extreme sound and trying to do something quite sort of cinematic with it, and make quite a very sort of atmospheric soundscape with it, I guess. And I think, yeah, by having those sorts of clean undertones, you can make the sound quite big, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about like the gear and stuff you use, I know last year, especially as you were saying, we were all concerned that live shows would never come back, but then they did. So you started doing a lot of live shows last year, and it looks like you're doing a lot more. So, you know, when playing live, like what's your approach really? Like, of course you're a noise artist, so are you trying to stick to like the original track that you made on, you know, the record, or are you just kind of doing a bit more improvisation throughout your sets?
I'm good to deviate from what it sounded like originally, but I like to try and make it so that, you know, if you've listened to the tape that I'm playing a track from, I like to make it so you can hear that when I'm playing. Be like, that's this track. Yeah, I think trying to do it exactly like it is in the studio recording would feel a bit limiting, and I feel like it would take away from the sort of chaos of what a live noise show can be. So I sort of tend to have some like synth playback just set up already, and then like some stuff I still like do fiddly about stuff on my computer, but the main thing I focus on is the sort of analog noise and feedback aspect. Yeah, then I tend to use the playback stuff to sort of, I guess, like guide me along, and help create a bit more of an atmosphere, and to help sort of keep the vague structure of what the original track sounds like.
So you're more or less just trying to keep like the familiar elements from what you made in the live set, but veering off and doing some new things as well.
Yeah. Okay. And I like to have little sort of improv-y bits throughout set as well. I think it's especially because I've been enjoying recording live sets and then incorporating improvised bits in those sets into future tracks. Because I think, yeah, like there's this sort of chaotic energy, I guess, about live noise that you can't replicate in a studio track. But if you get the actual recording of a set, it can, I guess, help push that energy forwards a little bit.
So you're talking about recording live sets. Are you going to be putting out a live album anytime in the future?
There's no plans for one at the moment. I'm sure it'll happen at some point because I'm slowly collecting live sets I've done. So I'll probably eventually compile like particularly good bits, pop them out at some point. But there's no like solid plans for one at the moment. Yeah, and especially because I think shows and just going to noise gigs and playing at noise gigs are 100% the best part of the scene. Yeah, I think you can't beat that experience. So yeah, that'd be nice to do.
So, talking about possibly doing a live album, but you do currently have a new studio album on the way called, can you help me pronounce this? Doriferous?
Doriferous's Bride, yeah.
Doriferous's Bride. Thank you. My stupid American tongue can't do certain words.
I hope that's how you pronounce it. If that's not how you pronounce it, then that's very embarrassing, but I'm pretty sure it's how you pronounce it.
Okay. All right. So the concept behind this album, it sounds pretty interesting. So, can you tell us more about it and what a possible release date for this album will be?
Yeah. So it's probably the most, well, I'd imagine anyway, it's probably going to be the most sort of uncomfortable to listen to thing I've made for people, but it's also the most positive album I've made for me, just in that the space that it came out with was quite a sort of healing space. Like when I was making it, I was coming out of a pretty bad sort of depressive place when I was making it, and I was also coming to terms with my body for the first time. So that was sort of, because I'm a trans woman, like I guess coming from a space of just avoiding sort of connecting with sensation in my body, to coming to a space where I could feel that very intensely, like getting to a place in my life where I was like falling for the two partners I've got now. It was like, I guess it was like a time in my life that was quite sort of sexually charged and also emotionally charged and also quite positive. But I sort of like thematically and trying to tell that through a metaphor, which I usually do with my releases. And that's like about neuro again. I did a release called Sporus a while back, and that was about Sporus, Neuro's relationship with a slave boy called Sporus, who like looked a lot like his wife, or Neuro's wife.
Okay.
And Neuro, I believe he kicked Popeye to death when she was pregnant, and then he felt bad about. This is according to like historians at the time, so it's all sort of shrouded or may not be true.
Okay.
I think for the theming, what I'm talking about, I'm just taking those things at face value. But yeah, so that was about his relationship with Sporus, and he had Sporus castrated and married him as his bride. And Doriferous was like the opposite, so he was a freedman, and Nero married him as Doriferous's bride, and played the role of the woman in that relationship. And that was sort of twisted, sort of fucked up queer romance. And I thought sort of doing it through that, telling what's kind of a nice story through quite a dark sort of metaphor, are really interesting to me. And I'm also like telling it through some pretty explicit sort of BDSM sort of sexual themes. So yeah, I think it's a cute album for me. Feels a little like a love letter for me. but I think maybe for other people going to listen to it and be like, what the fuck? So, yeah,
I mean,
interesting.
the story behind both of those, and Sporus, that one, you put that one out on Hard Return. I guess I missed that one, but wow, what a story behind that one. That is, I've never heard that story.
Yeah, Neuro was a wild guy. Yeah. So I guess Forest came from like a really dark emotional space for me, and this one is coming from a better emotional space. I'm looking forward to releasing it, and hopefully it should be out end of this month or early next month. It's just a matter of putting it together and getting the final like artwork stuff sent over. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay. And are you releasing this one like yourself, or is it going through a different label?
So it's going through Summer Interlude, one of my favorite noise labels. Definitely recommend them if you haven't checked them out.
And that one we're looking at the end of the month, and you also mentioned that you'll be doing some kind of short tour this summer.
Yeah, I am a busy girl this year. So I've got in May, I think in April, I'm doing a UK tour with my friends Drew and Danny. So that should be fun. And then, yeah, I'm doing a little tour in May as well in the US on the East Coast. That'd be really nice. It'd be really nice to meet. I've sort of connected with all these people in this scene who I've obviously never met in person. That's just going to be like, obviously it'll be fun to play and it'd be great to see. There was a big noise fest run by Dean, who runs Outsider Art, at the beginning of this year, called Feedback and Frustration. And that had like, it felt like the whole UK noise scene was there. And it was so nice because it was just like meeting all these people that I'd only been able to do live stuff for about 6 months before then. So it was just suddenly meeting all these people that I'd sort of been speaking to online and stuff like that, and they were just all in the same room together. It was fucking great. So
that's awesome. It looks like you got a whole bunch of stuff going on this year. We got new albums, we got 2 tours, one in the UK and one in the US. So where can people find you online? I know you're on Instagram. I don't think you're on Twitter anymore, and I don't blame you. It's a freaking cesspool right now.
Yeah, my Twitter's, I think I am following you on Twitter. I've got like it's like private, but I don't really use it anymore. I occasionally sort of post something unhinged. It's sort of Twitter's my place to go to just post my more unhinged kind of thoughts. And it's like private. So, I know it's not going to be seen by loads of people.
Oh, okay. Just sounding things out into the void kind of thing.
Yeah.
Love it.
It is pretty cursed.
Okay. All right. Well, you're also on Instagram, where it's a little less cursed.
It is. A little less cursed. Yeah.
A little less cursed. But, we can see like the live videos and the previews of albums and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Are you on Threads or Blue Sky at this time?
I am. I'm on Threads. I've got like a private account thing on Blue. Maybe I should make a Distraxi Blue Sky account. Good idea.
Blue Sky is pretty nice. It's nice and calm, and there's not a whole lot of piece of shit people there, which is really nice.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I haven't seen any bigotry on there yet, so that's quite nice. Yeah.
Crossed. All right. Well, Alina, thanks so much for joining me on here. It was great to talk to you, hear about all the stuff that you have coming up this year. Looking forward to hearing this new album. That'll be out, you said, the end of this month. Guessing probably around the 30th or maybe the 1st. And you said that is on Summer Interlude Records, and they can be found on Bandcamp. Can they also be found on Instagram?
Yeah, pretty sure they got an Instagram page. Yeah, I think they have. Yeah.
Everybody, make sure you check out Distraxi. She is on Instagram. She is on Threads, and she is still on Twitter if you want to see the really unhinged stuff. Make sure you check out Summer Interlude Records on Bandcamp and follow them on Instagram. Her new album will be coming out at the end of the month. And again, Alina, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.